You're an embarrassment, old man. Don't go inside. I was stunned by Emma's words. At the same time, I felt a surge of anger, thinking that this project was all thanks to me. If she says not to go in, then I won't go in, out of sheer stubbornness. But I won't be responsible for what happens later. My obstinate nature started bubbling up. I bit my lip and watched Emma disappear into the building. My name is John Smith, a 51-year-old office worker. I've been working at a trading company for almost 30 years since I graduated from college, without any notable achievements. On the other hand, I don't recall making any major mistakes, so I guess I'm just an ordinary office worker with an average record. The only thing I've enjoyed in my otherwise mundane life is running. Running in the spring, summer, fall, and winter, feeling the seasonal breeze, blows away the daily stress and makes me feel great. I started running in my early 30s when I noticed my belly starting to bulge, and now it's become my passion. This hobby led me to participate in marathons both domestically and internationally. The memories and experiences I've gained from interacting with runners on these trips are invaluable to me. I do my job moderately, take a decent amount of vacation time, and travel for marathons. Since I'm single and not interested in climbing the corporate ladder, I have a carefree life. My bosses up to now have allowed it, so my office life has been smooth sailing. I thought I'd retire peacefully and enjoy running even more after getting my retirement payout. I had such a modest dream. But this spring, a new manager brought storm clouds to my work life. Her name is Emma Johnson. She's 42 years old, a sharp career woman, and the type of person I struggle with the most. She's got an amazing figure, distinct features, and a style that captivates men, brightening up the office just by being there. But she's also a troublemaker who spreads poison. Emma uses her position as manager to yell at her subordinates and treats us like her soldiers. She imposes unreasonable work to boost her own reputation and doesn't tolerate dissent. Naturally, we, her subordinates, are dissatisfied with her, especially me, as she's younger than I am and lacks the kind of virtue my previous bosses had. But nobody dares to oppose her because rumors say she's the CEO's girlfriend. There are various sightings, like them walking arm in arm downtown or bumping into her coming out of the CEO's office late at night, so it's hard to believe it's just a rumor. In the first place, nobody in our company has ever risen through the ranks as quickly as she did, and her appointment as manager was an unprecedented decision said to have been made by the CEO himself. Given that, it's likely they have a special relationship. Our CEO, Michael Black, is 57 and has been single since his wife passed away. I wish Emma would marry the CEO and leave the company, but there's no sign of that happening. Will I have to continue working under this queen? That would ruin my office life. I wish I could find a way to get rid of her. As I was having these thoughts, an unexpected opportunity came my way. One day, I was called to the CEO's office along with Emma. I didn't want to deal with her, so I felt like I was walking with weights on my feet. As soon as we entered the CEO's office, Michael got straight to the point. "John, there's a big project we've been asked to handle. I want you to take charge of the negotiations. Also, since I'm not comfortable leaving it all to you, Emma will assist you. Okay?" I wanted to say no, but I didn't have the courage, so I reluctantly nodded in agreement. Even so, it was puzzling. A large project, hand-picked, with a $60 million deal falling into my lap. "Who is the client?" I asked Michael, and he handed me the company's brochure. As I skimmed through it, I saw that the client was the U.S. branch of a foreign company. Since the contact point is the U.S. office, it's a relief that we don't have to negotiate in other languages. However, the name didn't ring a bell. What kind of relationship do we have? I felt like Michael was seeing right through me, and as I hesitated, he continued speaking. "It seems it's an occasional offer from the CEO of the client company, directly to me." Hearing that, I glanced at the name of the CEO written in the company brochure. At that moment, the fog that had been clouding my mind suddenly cleared. However, I was surprised to find out he was the CEO of such a big corporation. While my questions were answered, I was hesitant to talk about my relationship with Ken. I wanted to keep it hidden from the company, as it was that kind of relationship. So, I decided to give a vague answer. I think it's probably because a company I dealt with before requested me. These things happen when you've been in sales for a long time. I tried to sound natural, but apparently my smile was awkward. Emma peered at me with a puzzled look. Would they offer such a big deal, $60 million, to someone who was just introduced? Something doesn't sit right. This woman has a sharp sense. Still, she didn't dig deeper. Supporting a subordinate's deal is as good as claiming it as her own success. She was probably smirking inwardly. Well, whatever. If it's just that level of connection, I'll take the lead. You just follow my instructions. Nodding at Emma's firm tone, I agreed. All right, just make sure you handle this properly. It's a big deal, so don't screw it up, Michael said, looking into Emma's eyes. Glancing at her, I could see she was giving him a signal. They definitely have something going on. I was convinced the rumors about them were true. The negotiations with the client went smoothly. The client accepted our proposal as is, and without the usual price negotiations. We set a date for the business meeting. The meeting was to be held at the client's New York branch. Our side would consist of Emma and me, and the client would be represented solely by Eric, making a total of 3 people. While Emma often communicated with Eric over the phone, I had never even heard his voice, as I was just doing the tasks assigned by Emma. Emma always seemed to enjoy talking with Eric on the phone. I wondered what kind of guy he was. Maybe he's the kind of good-looking guy Emma likes. While I was lost in these thoughts, Emma snapped at me with harsh words. What are you spacing out for? It's creepy to see you grinning like that. Old man, get this done by tomorrow noon. Emma was always like this, pushing work onto me right before the end of the workday. Because of that, I ended up doing a lot of overtime in preparation for this meeting. I really wanted to finish work quickly and go for a run around Central Park. But once the deal was closed, I would be free from Emma. That thought made me feel a little more positive. On the day of the meeting, the 15-minute walk from the nearest station felt unusually long due to the blazing sun. More than that, it might have felt long because Emma was walking ahead of me. Sweating profusely, we finally arrived at the client's building. I could easily imagine the world beyond the automatic doors, separated by just a sheet of glass, being completely different. With one step inside, I'd be freed from the scorching heat. If we were shown into an air-conditioned room and given some iced coffee, that would be perfect. As I indulged in this fantasy, Emmy said something unexpected. Actually, you don't need to come, old man. Emma's eyebrow twitched slightly. When Emma did that, it usually meant she was up to something bad. Whether it was forcing overtime, suddenly changing plans, or even making someone wait in line at a popular restaurant near the office, it was always like this. I really didn't want to be at this business meeting anyway, so if they said I didn't have to come, that was fine. But if that were the case, I would have preferred they told me before I left the office. Coming all the way here, just for this? I couldn't help but mutter my frustration. The client's office was in an industrial area, with no cafes around to kill time. On top of that, the sun was scorching my skin just after the rainy season had ended. I didn't want to participate in the meeting, but I did want to cool off in an air-conditioned room. That's why I walked all the way from the station. Could I join you guys? I promise I won't be a bother. At this rate, I was gonna dry up. I hated sucking up to a younger woman, but I had no choice if I wanted to escape this heat. I expected some kindness from her. But to my shock, Emma clicked her tongue. You're an embarrassment. Don't come in. I was stunned by her words. At the same time, I felt a rising anger. This deal was thanks to me. After all, if they didn't want me inside, fine, I wouldn't go in. But whatever happened after that wasn't my responsibility. My stubbornness flared up as I watched Emma disappear into the building. The meeting dragged on for 5 hours, much longer than expected. Even though the negotiations were going smoothly, why was it taking so long? I stood in the scorching sun, drenched in sweat, waiting for Emma to come out. If Ken, the CEO of the client company, knew I was waiting outside, he'd probably blow a fuse. The deal might even get canceled. If that happened, it wouldn't hurt me, but it would definitely be a blow to the greedy Emma. I stewed in the heat, plotting how I would spill everything and get Emma in trouble. Just as the sun started to set, Emma finally emerged, accompanied by two men. One was a tall, handsome guy, and the other was my friend, Ken, who also happened to be the company CEO. As soon as Ken walked out of the automatic doors, he noticed me. "Hey, isn't that Michael?" Ken greeted me with a big smile, walking over. "Long time no see. You're as tan as ever." Emma looked surprised, watching our conversation. "You two know each other?" I could hear Emma thinking. Ken noticed how sweaty I was. "Why are you drenched in sweat? You didn't run here, did you? And didn't I hear you couldn't make it to the meeting because you weren't feeling well?" Ken turned to Emma, who looked uncomfortable, her face twitching awkwardly. A whisper of, "Oh no," is slipping out of her heart. "Oh, that's right. He said he wasn't feeling well, so I told him not to push himself." "But why did you wait out here? You should have just gone home." Emma desperately tried to salvage the situation. Usually, I get shut down by her double tongue, but not today. Ken and I had a strong bond. "Why, you ask?" "Because you told me not to come in since I was an embarrassment, so I waited out here. I'm not sick at all, but after waiting 5 hours, I'm pretty wiped out now." I expressed my frustration as clearly as I could. Ken's cheerful expression began to darken. "What the heck is going on here? I came all the way from abroad, looking forward to seeing him. Do you have any idea why I offered this deal to your company?" Ken's sudden outburst left Emma stunned. Apparently, after the business deal was finalized, Ken had been eagerly waiting to meet with me. But Emma, being her usual spiteful self, had blocked that. Emma, usually so composed, was visibly shaken for a change. She couldn't understand why Ken was so angry. "You don't seem to know him," Ken said through gritted teeth. "He's the one who saved my life, and he's my closest friend." "What?" Emma's eyes darted around at Ken's angry shout. "Actually, Ken and I are connected through a bond formed by running. It happened about 10 years ago at the Honolulu Marathon. Towards the end of the race, around the 35 kilometers mark, the runner in front of me suddenly stumbled off the course and collapsed, huddling on the ground. Realizing something was seriously wrong, I ran back against the course and rushed to the aid station to get medical help. It turned out the runner had suffered a heart attack. Fortunately, quick medical intervention saved his life. That runner was Ken. Since then, we've become friends and have run together in marathons around the world. I had heard through the grapevine that he ran a company. But once you cross the starting line in running, status doesn't matter, it's an equal sport. No matter how wealthy someone is, they have to run on their own 2 feet to earn that finisher's medal. Maybe that's why we've always interacted on an equal footing, without worrying about our backgrounds. I don't know how he came to offer a deal to our company. Probably from some conversation during a race, he found out I worked for a trading company and thought of me. "Hey Eric, let's scrap this deal," Ken said, giving a stern look at Eric, the person in charge. "But the contract is already signed." Eric looked back at Ken with a confused expression. As I had imagined, Eric, who looks like mixed race, had blue eyes that were now unsettled. "We just finished signing the contract, and now you're saying to scrap it." His confusion was evident on his face. But there was something more unsettling in the air. The way Emma was looking at Eric and the uncertainty in Eric's eyes as he looked back at her. Something was off. Was there something behind the 5-hour-long negotiation? That's what my intuition told me. Anyway, it's off. Emma is off the project. If that condition isn't met, the deal's off. "John, I requested you specifically, so I'd like you to handle it." "Okay?" Ken spoke in a stern tone, but ended with a smile. "I'm sorry for any trouble caused. As I apologized, Ken stopped me. "I'll talk to your boss. Please handle the internal adjustments," Ken said and disappeared into the building. Emma took a step as if to follow him, but Ken's determined and commanding demeanor stopped her in her tracks. When we returned to the office, a message from Ken had already arrived. Emma and I were called to the CEO's office by Michael. "Emma, the way you handled this was wrong." Michael sighed and softly reprimanded Emma. "I'm sorry, but I didn't know that John and Ken had such a relationship. Besides, why didn't you mention that to me, John?" While making a show of apologizing, Emma couldn't hide her frustration with me. "Because my relationship with Ken is personal, not professional, and I didn't want to mix business with personal matters," I explained with a wry smile, causing Emma to frown. "What does that mean? You should have just made something up. Because you were so honest about being told not to get involved, this happened. You're just a useless old man who can't distinguish between the front and back sides of things." Emma glared at me, growing angrier by the second. Meanwhile, I stuck my tongue out at her in my mind, even as she showered me with sarcasm. No matter what she said, she couldn't be involved in this deal. I didn't care about taking credit for the work since I wasn't aiming for a promotion, but it annoyed me that Emma might steal the reward Ken had promised me. "Serves her right, the band woman," I shouted in my mind at Emma's glaring face. At that moment, she looked puzzled. "What? Did you say something? This woman really is scary." Could she sense even my inner thoughts if I let my guard down? "No, nothing." I quickly denied it, though my face might have twitched. "Anyway, we'll have John handle this exclusively from now on. Is that okay, Emma?" Michael said in a bored tone, to which Emma pursed her lips. "Can't we work something out?" she pleaded in a sweet voice. Michael hesitated for a moment, but then frowned, realizing it was impossible. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do this time. We'll make it up to you with another task, so please accept it." Michael tried to appease Emma, who pouted and stared at him. Michael responded with an awkward smile, sending a warm look her way, which she returned with a mischievous grin. Watching their ridiculous exchange, I felt utterly disillusioned. "You two, keep this up forever," I thought, as I left the CEO's office. With Michael asking me to restart the negotiations, I got straight to work. There was nothing complicated about it. I just needed to tear up the contract Emma had made, change the representative's name to mine, and resume the negotiations. Back at my desk, I grabbed the contract on Emma's desk and started reading it. A strange feeling of unease crept into my chest. This wasn't the contract I had given to Emma. Something was off, and I sensed it immediately. I quickly copied the documents, returned the original to Emma's desk, and locked myself in a conference room to thoroughly review it. As expected, my intuition was correct. Emma hadn't excluded me from the negotiations just because she thought I was old. Nor was it that she wanted to hog the deal for herself. There was a darker scheme hidden behind this contract. I immediately contacted Ken and arranged a meeting with him, myself, and Eric, the person in charge of the negotiations. Since Ken was only staying in the US for 3 days, we couldn't waste any time. The next morning, I headed to Ken's office. When I entered the conference room, Eric was there, looking pale and dejected. Ken must have given him a hard time before I arrived. "Ken, I sincerely apologize for what happened this time." I began with an apology. "That fox, she's quite something. And this fool fell for it too. Even if it happened without my knowledge, it's embarrassing as someone from the same company. I am truly sorry." As I apologized again, Ken smiled slyly and stopped me. "No, it's fine. I'm grateful for your honesty. But how do you plan to settle this?" His tone was calm, directed at me, but the anger towards Emma's misconduct was palpable. His use of the term "settle" reflected his seriousness. Emma had roped Eric into signing an illicit contract. She tried to create a middleman company between us and Ken's company, planning to skim money off the top. I discovered this scheme through the contract Emma had, and I reported it to Ken. When Ken questioned Eric, he confessed everything. It wasn't my idea. At first, I refused, but Emma kept calling, saying it was foolproof and wouldn't be exposed. Eventually, we met. After she stared into my eyes and held my hand at that fancy bar, I couldn't say no. From there, I just went along with everything. She even mentioned she'd done this kind of thing before and had a stash saved up. She said we could retire to a tropical island together if it worked out. I got caught up in it, and I'm so sorry. With tears welling up, Eric explained. Apparently, Emma had even shown him a condo in her name and plane tickets to Hawaii to prove her seriousness. Eric, with his striking good-looking, fair skin and blue eyes, looked like a model. It wasn't surprising that Emma might genuinely be attracted to him. How dare she try to seduce a client representative and propose embezzlement? I wondered how to make her pay. She deserved to be dragged down to hell. I'm going to report this to our CO. We have your testimony recorded, Eric, so Emma won't be able to weasel out of this. Impressive, John. Being so upfront about this. That's just like you. I'll trust you and go through with this contract, Ken said, extending his hand for a handshake. I grasped Ken's large hand and replied. So what's going to happen to him? I asked, glancing at the dejected Eric. Ken gave Eric a brief look and then pondered before turning back to me. What do you think we should do? He asked. I shared my thoughts. Eric had been foolish to fall for Emma's trap. However, for a man inexperienced with women like her, it was understandable. Normally, he'd be fired for attempted embezzlement. But if he were dismissed, he might fall back into Emma's clutches, and that would be a disaster. Raising love between two people who have nothing might be interesting in a drama, but if the lead is Emma, it makes me sick. I want to take everything away from Emma. In that case, we shouldn't leave birds of a feather alone. If possible, could we transfer him to another office abroad and give him another chance? It'd also help him cut ties with Emma. Ken nodded thoughtfully. Eric looked at me with admiration. That's a good idea. You really are a decent guy. I'd love to grab a meal together, but I've got a tight schedule. Let's meet at the next race. I'm looking forward to it. With that, our meeting concluded. Now, all that remained was to deal with Emma back at the office. I was ready to reclaim my peaceful work life. When I thought that way, I felt a surge of energy. Back at the office, I went to the CO's office to report on the situation, with Emma present. Good job, John. I'm glad the deal went through, Michael said, smiling. I'd already informed the client, so he was pleased. Emma, on the other hand, looked displeased, having been excluded from the deal and forced to listen to my victory report. Well, good for you. It was a windfall deal, but since it's a sales achievement for our department, I'll give you credit. Her words were congratulatory, but her expression was stiff. She must have been disappointed that her plan to take off with Eric to a tropical island had failed. All right, are we done? I'm busy. Emma spoke curtly and turned her back on Michael. I stopped her. Emma, please bear with us a little longer. Michael raised his eyebrows, perhaps surprised by my words. Emma crossed her arms in front of her chest, clearly annoyed. What is it? Is there something else? She said, nudging my heel with her toe. Still, I didn't back down and instead grinned at her before continuing. The truth is, we've discovered some irregularities in this contract. As I spoke, I looked at Emma and she flinched. It was evident she knew what I was talking about. Irregularities? What do you mean, John? Michael said, raising his voice. Emma, standing next to him, looked uneasy, her fingers twitching. Actually, Emma was conspiring with Eric from our client company to embezzle funds. Emma's eyebrows shot up as she retorted. What are you talking about? Don't say such nonsense. There's no way I'd do something illegal. It was clear she was flustered. Her panic only made her guilt seem more likely. John, what's this all about? If this is just a made-up story, there'll be consequences. Yeah, if you're lying, you're fired. Emma chimed in, echoing Michael's words. She must have known better than anyone that what I was saying was true. With no other option, she had to try to win Michael over to her side. It's not nonsense. Here's a copy of the contract that was left on Emma's desk. It was supposed to be the contract I drafted for the initial negotiations, but it was switched out. As I placed the contract on the desk, Michael picked it up and started to read through it. However, he couldn't find the irregularity at a glance and gave up halfway through. It was hard to read, so I adjusted it for you. And stealing documents from someone's desk, that's just the lowest. Emma raised her voice, visibly angry. So, what's irregular about this contract? Could you explain it succinctly? There's no need to listen to this. It's a waste of time. Besides, the deal is done. Can't we just leave it at that? Emma tried to forcefully wrap up the conversation to avoid further scrutiny. Michael pretended to be interested, but since it involved his lover, he wasn't eager to uncover the truth. Even if I presented clear evidence, they'd likely try to cover up the misconduct and silence me. They could reassign me to some remote area, or worse, fire me. But this was all possible because of the close relationship between Michael and Emma. If I could drive a wedge between them, everything would fall apart. All right, I'll explain. I laid out all of Emma's misconduct. She had inserted a company with her ties between our firm and the client to skim money. Moreover, she seduced Eric to bring him onto her side. Furthermore, Emma promised Eric that if this went well, they'd live on a southern island together. Also, there's a story that she's used similar schemes in the past to embezzle funds and bought a resort property overseas with the money. I said everything in one go, not giving Emma any chance to interrupt. Finally, I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording of Eric's testimony. Eric's tearful voice filled the CO's office, and Michael's eyes widened in anger. What is this? This is so unfair. How could you do this? Emma shouted, distraught. She tried to snatch my phone, her hair in disarray. I dodged her charge, and she stumbled to the floor. But she quickly got up and lunged at me again, her suit in disarray. Michael's cold voice cut through her frantic actions. Enough, Emma. At his voice, Emma stopped moving. Her eyes were wide with shock. This is a lie. There must be some mistake. Please, believe me, Mikhail. Her desperate plea echoed through the room. What do you expect me to believe at this point? It's over. Leave now. Michael's voice was devoid of any emotion. Perhaps he had lost all feelings for the woman who betrayed him. It's all your fault. Give me back my happiness. Emma glared at me with a demonic expression. I met her glare and pointed my finger right at her nose. You brought this on yourself. You've caused so much suffering. Make sure you pay for it. As I firmly declared this, she collapsed on the spot. Having lost all affection for Emma, Michael ordered an investigation into her actions. As a result, numerous irregular transactions were uncovered. Naturally, Emma was dismissed for misconduct, and criminal charges are being pursued. Her illicitly acquired funds and properties are likely to be seized. Emma had used her beauty to manipulate many men into helping her. She kept most of the profits for herself, leaving the men infatuated with her charms. Although the relationship between Michael and Emma isn't officially part of the investigation, everyone in the company knows about it. People are now laughing at how our CEO was played by a cunning woman. Emma reportedly left her apartment in Los Angeles and moved to a rural area. Having lost her money, men, and power, she seems to have aged significantly and no longer has the allure to captivate men in the city. With Emma gone, I've regained my peaceful office life. Moreover, we've secured a continued contract with Ken's company, ensuring my future. As long as I'm around, the company will value me without me having to do anything special. No one will complain if I take a long vacation for an overseas trip, and the whole company might even support me in it. Ken may have approached me with this deal because he thought it would make things easier for me. In any case, I've now got the perfect setup to enjoy my favorite pastime, running. Next month, I plan to meet Ken again at a marathon in New York. We'll probably finish around the 5-hour mark, giving us plenty of time to chat as we run. And after the race, we'll celebrate at an oyster bar. I'm already looking forward to it.